Nyepa gunlen namdola shing yenden gunge genbambu semchen gunge nyen chikbu tamche kenla gun chaenze omen chege yange pot ne dusum sangye gunge ngogo ni rangsum chogo ngusum mantenze be save lame shabla sowai ne ngarang lobjong changi yu sambe sambat samshi main bar jiri sangi ki dambi che de nani tekpa chenpo kin che teni gyud yawar shepi nyingbu di teni rangi topi che tu lungi che tenjo tendela tekpa dang sambe koni jugu yu sambe samba ngi chung dang janju sikisam dang tembe koni dambi che sembar shu
Please start by giving rise to most excellent pure intention, that of renunciation and the mind of awakening. Thinking that in the duration of this Dharma session, I'm not going to just merely study some material, but what I will be doing here, I will be engaging with the Dharma of scriptures by means of receiving the teachings, reflecting on the meaning of teachings. And this Dharma of scriptures pertains to the Mahayana Dharma, the Dharma of the great vehicle. And so I'm actually going to do the study and reflection in order to realize my own intrinsic nature, that of Buddha nature, or the awakened nature. So with that purpose then, with that intention, please listen to the teachings.
teni tangan zo kasang tenju se di dedang telbe koni jir tenju kin ke batang kebardu kasbabe deshe ningu ham Gyud Lama tabu tindegi tenju dela tesam komsum gi koni ani chubin gobadini shibe kape
In the last Dharma session, we have been looking at the meaning of treatise. And in relation to, in connection with explanation of this term treatise, we also have been looking at the general purposes of treatises. But here specifically, we have been looking at the purpose and benefit of studying a treatise such as a Gyud Lama, the one that expounds a topic of Buddha nature. So we have been seeing some benefits and some reasons for us receiving the teachings, reflecting on the teachings, and putting the teachings into practice. That's where we have left off in our last Dharma session.
teni da gobadela kasang teni tenju rangi kamgi liwi ki kapsula gobadela Deshe nyingbu di yobatang yimba hamakona kyun kari yoresuna tini giluk tani nyebatang semchen shenla ingche gomatu bala sobeki tini kyun nga yoresuni tati khasan shubare.
In the last Dharma session, we have looked at some specific purposes of studying the treatise, such as Gyud Lama that explains Buddha nature. The purpose that itself is clearly stated at the end of the 4th chapter of this treatise, the chapter on the element of our enlightened element. So there we have seen that, well, we looked at 5 faults, 5 defects that ensue if we do not realize our Buddha nature, if we don't take up study, reflection, and practice of Buddha nature. We have seen that there are faults such as there will be self-deprecation, right? The lack of courage and confidence in oneself. Likewise, we won't give rise to pure compassion towards all beings, and so on. So that's right what we have looked at in the last session.
Da khasangi jiba kyunga sediyang su ndor dushana tini manzu gilupi lelo sedi tishe nyingbu yoba hama kona gilupi lelo sedi kitini cheni tangbo chola chugmatu patang kisi chugba inayang tini sambana shingi tsundi tso matube tang lam rimki do matube kitini kyunchi yungu yore sini tatso desumbare tende ki gilu ki lelo se deyang ani nangse cheba ina anzu tenjo ki nangla tini debu la gilu patang Gyud Lam da gilu pa sini tini ni la shayo ti ni nangla dudu gore
Chigdi Jebu, Chigdi Lam.
lam dang gyu lam la gilu patang debu la gilu pa kos ke gyudira gyudan debu
Yeah, Gyu di kapsu di ragata gaya ta Gyu, shapki Gyu. Causal path. Okay, in Gyu Lam, Constantine Lam Yure Lasso. So when we look at these 5 faults, right, the 5 defects that come about when we don't realize Buddha nature that permeates all sentient beings, we can see that this kind of fault of laziness, and in terms of laziness, we really talk about this kind of laziness of self-deprecation, not believing in ourselves. Right? This kind of laziness of putting oneself down really comes strongly. And that laziness prevents us, first of all, from entering onto the path of Dharma. But even if we manage to enter onto the path of Dharma, if we still have if we don't trust in Buddha nature, then what happens is that we won't have appropriate amount of diligence to really practice the path, right? According to our own wishes. We won't succeed. Like we want to succeed, right? But it won't happen. It won't happen because of putting ourselves down. So this laziness of self-deprecation is really quite a strong fault. And we can divide it into 2. In terms of this laziness, we can understand it from 2 angles. The one angle is that one of the fruition, laziness in terms of the result. And another one is laziness in terms of the cause or the path, right? We can say one is the fruit and another one is cause and result.
Ta de nang ni tangbo debu la gilukwa se ti khande chila se ge resena. Ta kandar debu pangdok thar chimbe sanje ki kopang se chi sigi mare sisa mare sambe ke dokwa ke bam iche ke matu patang tende chi yungo yore. Anta di gyumsen mangbo shida yosi bare soso ki ngongi le tal ki ken ni soso lungba kawala chalong chung yome soso ki kyabchong ki rikshung gari le tingi yome ta dame de mangbo yosho korwa. Ine kaangdar da soso nge ha kuku mindu nge tongu mindu da kari laba ine ya kaangdar sanje se chik debu sanje kopang se chik sisa mare sambeki tela ichi ke matu patila teni debu la gilu pa sungere.
In terms of the first, say, type, if you were, of this laziness, but I don't really like laziness here so much because it's really about just this whole attitude of not believing, of not trusting. And the first one pertains to the fruition. It's when we don't really believe that Buddhahood is achievable, when we don't have confidence that that state of awakening is possible. We don't trust, right? We don't believe. There could be many reasons for why we have those kind of doubts. One could be it's our past karma. Another reason could be just kind of random temporary circumstances of this life, such as the country in which we have been born or our background, right? What kind of culture we come from. All of that affects us, but the point is the same. If we say that, well, I don't know about Buddhahood, this kind of state of awakening, I don't see it, I don't know. Is it really possible? Don't think so, right? That kind of mentality of not having confidence and trust in the result, this is the first kind of subdivision of laziness of self-deprecation.
Ta di yo na teni ngaranzu chela tangbo juk tuk mare sumbare kar resena ta sangye kopang se chi korang siba tang yoba te korang ichi che matub na ni di top de gu lo dang de gi lam la chu de gu lo ki gi marwa tin ju chelen juk be gi barchi chi gi le lo de thongmar.
So this kind of mentality or attitude, you can say this kind of laziness of self-deprecation, when it comes to not believing in the result, that is to say in state of a Buddha, that will become a really huge obstacle for us to just start engaging with the Dharma, enter onto the path. Because if we don't trust in the result, in the fruition of full awakening, we don't believe in that, we won't have a wish to obtain that state. And not having that wish, right, will kind of result in us not bothering to even enter onto the path of Dharma. So in that way, that whole thing of kind of being lazy in terms of not trusting, not believing in the achievability, we can say in the attainment of, in the possibility of attainment of a state of Buddhahood will become a huge obstacle for us.
다 니바 디 카레레스에서나 Gyud Lama kilukbe lelos. 다 디디디니 가르sungo 요레서나 다 상게 세직 시기레 삼발라 이제 여바 있는 양 Gyud Lama lam 세디 상게 토베기 시자 차겐제로 봐 아니 디 지당 나랑라 민두 여마레 삼베기 랑라 여바들 이마치니 상게다 고방다 여사레 이내양 다 나다워지 상게 고방 톱도자 마레 가와가와 스니 덴데기 랑이라 상게 토베기 규긴 여발라 여바리 이마체디 니 톱토구 마레 삼베기 셈슈 차바들라 가르세기 그랬으나 아니 귤람라 길로빌레로 시거
So that was about the fruition, not really trusting in the outcome. And the second type of this laziness of self-deprecation is not having trust in the cause, kind of the path, right? So perhaps we do believe in Buddhahood. We think, yes, it's possible. There is the state of full awakening, the state of a Buddha. But when it comes to achieving that myself, well, I don't have what it takes. This Buddhahood exists, but for me, that's really not possible, right? I don't have those kind of causes and conditions to achieve it. So when we have this kind of mentality, right, kind of putting ourselves down, not trusting in ourselves, not believing that we have all what it takes to achieve the state of Buddhahood, right? Feeling therefore disheartened, kind of discouraged. That would be the laziness of self-deprecation in terms of not believing in the cause that is the path.
다 덴데기 디밤 상게 세직 시사마레 삼바당 시내양 닥다부기 톱토기 마레 삼바당 차상 디다 가와니 연구열에 디바딘주디 간디시 간지니 연구열에서나 다 배제 안수 칙이게 나라 domjamni labdu gare 당보디 가르레스나 랑기 다다 여베기 셰바 디기 ngo디 살와 세디 하마고 용디 도바디 찍레게래 니바디 ngaransu게 단다 나예디 셈기 넘버 루부르비 디마디 난게 여래 다 덴데기 루부르기 디마디 루부르와 세디 하마고나 셈기 ngoore 되나 되네 셈진 세디 상게 두사마리 삼섬라버지 덴데기 도바디 용거래 다디 내가 준버래 ngobo 살와 임바당 디마 루부르와 세기 칙니디 야고 진이 삼로탄이 녜시케드나 되니 디불라 길로바당 길라인 길로베게 디바니가 돼요 빵투거래 니하마고나 덴데긴 디바니부디 용니 질 람라 죽마투바당 기시 람라 죽바이네야 아니 준디께 마투바 차상디 다디 내가 니부디 살와 세데당 셈경고 살와 세데당 디마 루부르바 세 니부디 당한주기 똑마투 곰마투 디마투 발라테니 연구열에 숨바래
So where do this kind of attitudes, where do this kind of mental states of not believing in Buddhahood, not believing in possibility for oneself to achieve state of Buddha, where do they come from, right? These two types of laziness of self-deprecation, not believing in Buddhahood and then not believing in one's own abilities to achieve it. There are really two causes for those kind of outlooks, right? The one will be not understanding, not having trust that the nature of our mind is luminosity. It's clear light. The second cause will be not believing that the stains of our mind, so to say, these afflictions, obscurations, are temporary and can be removed. So in this case, in the second cause, we actually think that those, those stains, which are just a temporary aspect of our mind, we think that that's the true nature of our mind, and not recognizing that instead, actually, they are just adventitious and temporary, but the true nature of our mind is luminous, right? So these two explanations, they're really, really important. Right? Again, this is what happens, right? All these kind of faults that we just talked about come from not either believing in the pure luminous nature of our mind, or second, thinking that this kind of aspect like stains and obscurations are actually true nature of our mind and they are not fleeting and temporary, right? So it's because we don't have that kind of certainty that actually our true nature is luminous and the stains are adventitious, we have then these two types of laziness that we just talked about. And once we understand that this is not the case, my true nature of the mind is really luminous, it's pure and clear light, and these obscurations, these stains are just fleeting, adventitious by nature, when we have that strong certainty, then we will be capable of abandoning, of getting rid of the two types of laziness, not believing in the fruit and not believing in the cause, that's to say ourselves. Otherwise, really, we won't even enter onto the path of Dharma, right? If we don't have that kind of confidence in those two things that I just outlined, we won't enter. But even if we do meet with the Dharma, then what happens is that we will lack sufficient amount of diligence, perseverance, enthusiasm in practicing the Dharma. So all these kind of faults of us not really succeeding in our Dharma practice, right? Not having that diligence, that enthusiasm, really come from us not believing in those two things about nature of the mind and the states being adventitious, not meditating on those two, not familiarizing ourselves with those two aspects. So they're really, really important.
다 gyula gilobe 상계 세지 세게 말했어야지 아주 출라 마슈킨당 양지 스스 따와 심바 유행된들라 망아 용거와 되니 람라 길루바세디 당아란수다고 출라 슈비 간사 있는 양 니 텐데긴 데부디 상계기다 송도 빼쳐나라다 수 ngama ki tuktok tin da jong in sa re in ya da nge kawa tinde ke samlo chi ngaran zula yore te tiba ti ne ngaran zula chela shu simbam shuken ke lamshu ke kansa tin zula
Dampu di jebu, ra? Di chuma shukenla. Jebu na olas na di nas.
debula la debula gilo patin
This first type of laziness, of self-deprecation, of not believing in the result of Buddhahood, not really believing that it exists, That happens mostly to those who have not entered onto the path of Dharma, like not non-Dharma practitioners, right? But it's the second one that really kind of more prevalent with the Dharma practitioners. Those who have entered onto the path of Dharma. So they believe that Buddhahood exists. Well, the texts state that, the teachers say that, we know kind of that there have been great practitioners in the past who have achieved that state. So, Dharma practitioners for most part believe that, right? There is this state of Buddhahood. But when it comes to believing that then I myself personally can achieve that, whoa, that's where really, the problems come. So for Dharma practitioners, it's the second type of laziness, this kind of the one that pertains to not believing in one's own abilities, right? One's own cause, kind of the path, really following the path for oneself. That's the one that Dharma practitioners need to watch out for.
다치당 아주 상기세디 딘데기 고방치 시기레 시기 말에서 든조지 베 릭바땅니 디니지 아 데망볼로 디니 돌링 망보 제데바이네 타자니 쳐두고 말해 릭바땅니 디니 드베디니 가버려 대가 난신기 람세디 삼력양바 땅데바이나 그 지그 시라시라 디바디 빵두고 말해 게치슈디 가르레스나 스스로게 뒤서 최대 배주 땅거래 배는 민지나 산이 내살라 팽기도 팽기미를 따는 신행 아주 이식기로 와 단 민데 케요니더니 마사바지니다 팽기레다 마레 간데스 팽기레 가디 팽기레 술라 팽기레스네 빼 삼몽바 땅데바이나 데코 타메바지 차로 그래 엔던다 도르디나다 덴데기 디바디 세발라 또저 라니 람라 죽나 땡원이 다니 람상다 가지게다 니시키기 말데 이네양 갈라칸섬 주셈라 딩 톱기로 봐람 덴데지 두바이나 셈들란 기르와 땅에도 기르와 탭기도 삼베기 이제실렘나 데니 람라 이체바단 디빌레 이체바세든조 림바신도 세로 게로 조로 루트거리 디 내가 춤버래 마도 간저 리과땅니 땅보 차상 타주네 아니 가냠린 지기 인생 람나 고데나 데니 디 뉴스지 용하여 말해 딘데 당번이 또지 최디 베제 땅니 데니 가 딱이 인생이 데니 디제 내가 춤버시고래
Generally, this kind of examination of whether Buddhahood is possible or not, it cannot bring about the full trust and confidence. Sorry, let me say it more clearly. So we cannot really reach full confidence in the possibility of Buddhahood just by examining it, investigating it, reading about it, discussing it with each other. In other words, logic will never be enough, right? Our logical, conceptual mind will never succeed in bringing about that full confidence and trust. Well, the thinking, the logic can only achieve so much, and then it will fail us. So it's really not about like thinking and really resolving it by means of like examination, investigation, like really, if I follow the path, is it gonna be, am I gonna like really achieve Buddhahood, right? We're not gonna really kind of clear away our doubts by thinking about Buddhahood or by thinking about the path. What can be done is that we can just try Start following the path and see, right? Experience it for ourselves. It's just like with taking medicine. That if we are sick, we can become experts on medicine, like, oh, what type of medicine is the best, at what time should we take it, what is the proper dosage, right? We can become so learned, but then if we don't really take that medicine, we're not going to get better. So same is here. There's no end to our thinking mind. It's never going to stop and decide, that's it. Right, I totally believe there is Buddhahood and I can achieve it. We're not going to reach that state, that point, by just examining and thinking about it and discussing and reading it. What can be done is that we can just start following the path. Of course, from the beginning, we won't have 100% certainty that this path is going to bring about that kind of result of our full awakening of our potential. But we can start seeing for ourselves step by step, like, okay, when I do this practice, what happens to my mind? Does it change? Like, do we really see some changes, right, when we follow the path? That kind of like our own personal first-hand experience is the only way to really proceed. Like, the more we like proceed then on the path, the more experience we gain, the more clear it will become, the more vast, the more perfect our understanding will become. But it's only possible by doing it, not just by thinking. Otherwise, what could happen is that we will decide to, I'm not going to follow the Dharma path. I'm not going to practice until I have a total resolution that Buddhahood is possible. I'm going to wait until I resolve it in my mind. Well, what happens is that we're going to wait forever for that kind of, certainty, for that resolution. Rather than, waiting, we should just start and see for ourselves, right? Try and see. And then from our own experience, we will come to believe it more and more.
Tende indu ta nga zo sem gi ngo wasal yimba tang dima lubur ba yimba ti lo mangbo la rigba tang ne samlo tang de ba yin ya ta jue ka bu shira re ti yin ya su su ki da sem de la kha nang do lo ni nam do sangbo nam do ngimba ani kari char ba yin ya shar yong du de ngo wala kha nang do lo ni te ba yin na yan ten ten ji ngo salwa tang dima lubu wa se di la samlo tang gyu yo ba tang yiji ki gyu yo ba ji tang ta nyer nyer de yo ba ji yung gre den zu ne ga re twa
It's really difficult to resolve, like ascertain that our true essence is luminosity, and that just these afflictive emotions and obscurations are just nothing but temporary fleeting stains. It's really hard to resolve that by just studying for many, many years or examining it for many, many years. No matter for how long we have been thinking about that, it's not going to bring about that full confidence, full trust. So what we can do is whenever we do experience any difficult mental states, like negative thoughts, difficult emotions, when they arise, instead of like elaborating, like we should just turn inwards. Khenpo la di nandu kato ne ra? Inwardly, yeah, turn inwards and see what is the true nature of those difficult mental states and what is the true nature of the mind. And the more we then reflect in that very intimate way, right, kind of really personally, really look at them when at the moment when we experience them, the more we get closer to truth, the more trust, the more certainty will arise.
다 디 더 vessel se tang dimal lubur se di dini da kaspabe Gyud Lama ki da jeja zogo da woji jalana peje digre jidang deshe ningbure ina deshe ningba keje shebe kapsu dini keje shi ngorba da dini de hamago na nge dangi shuba nashin diba tinzu yungu yore da di vessel se tang lubur se tsik di shira ki gowa ta ji samlo mangpo ji tangju yore ina yang da di tekar yang tsik di nganzu da gyur yongdu teni gyabjongi 다 따뜻히 하고 그러면은 양 뒤에서지 뭐 하고 자르고도 봐. 딘디다 간다디 녜상이 아주 다디 콜라 상이나니 디 주자 슈베 갑술라티니 녜 슈기인스 봐.
So these two aspects, the luminous nature of the mind and adventitious nature of the stains, is really the main topic of this text. Of course, we can say, well, the main topic is Buddha nature, right? Isn't it? That really it's the Buddha nature that's the main subject matter. But if we think what is Buddha nature, well, it comes to these two. It's the luminous nature of the mind and adventitious, fleeting nature of the obscurations. And it's when we fail to realize those two, the luminosity and adventitiousness, then those kind of faults that we have discussed previously will come about. So therefore, we can see that it's really important to understand these 2 points, luminosity and adventitiousness. And it's a lot could be said about these 2 terms, right? We can really explain them from different angles, but it will be really hard to fully understand what is meant by luminosity and adventitiousness without having some philosophical background, like in philosophical view of the Buddha Dharma. And that's why in the following Dharma sessions, like the next one and probably the one after that and after that, I'm going to talk about these 2 topics, like give you that kind of background to really understand what we mean, what Dharma means by luminosity and adventitiousness, because that will be done in the context of talking about the main subject matter of the text. Remember, we have the 3 topics that we've been looking at, and so we will come to the 3rd one, the discussion of the subject matter of the text, and in that context I will talk more about that.
Dine 다케 넘바 게리 심바 인겐 딘조 이나야 vessel se ki tsikdidang lubur se tsikdi ngaranzu nangba beba inanda di ko korangi gyabchongi logyu dang tumong mayimbi kechwe dang lakwardu da dila shiraj mangbo yore tumong mayimbi chwekeji chati yore da di tekarpa da gyudu di yang digeji rowa di lakwadwe dang kangechi yungduwa di indu da di korangi tsikgyurba tsamji mayimba dendagi gyabchongi concepti nge di kechimbo chati yore nge khazan shubay da di kola sangina yanganzu yang 디 제산 디걸랑이 또 지마 슈기 인스와
You see, when we talk about these 2 main concepts of this text, luminosity and adventitiousness, there is a little issue we run into, which is the language, its translation. Because obviously, well, I operate with Tibetan terms, selva for luminosity and lo burva for adventitiousness. And when a Tibetan person hears these 2 terms, selva, which we in English translate as luminosity, and lo burva, adventitiousness, they right away understand that, wow, this is really a very deep philosophical concepts. Like they really pertain to the Dharma, nature of the mind. They understand that this is not just like a colloquial expressions. But when we translate that into our languages, perhaps when we use these terms, luminosity and ventitiousness, we might have some kind of other ideas, right? According to our understanding of the language, the one that we operate in. And so, therefore, it's really important to understand the concepts behind those words and not just the words. And that's why I'm going to go into create more detail in the following sessions to really transfer the main understanding of those concepts, and not just give you those words and whatever idea you get from hearing luminosity or adventitiousness, it doesn't matter. No, it's not the case. We discussed this in a few previous, kind of in the few Dharma sessions ago, that it's really important to understand what stands behind those important terms and not just kind of use them loosely.
다 된다 돌디나 안주 가상 디방아 숭바레 그바딜라 디방아 방그레 드니 윤전가 토그레 숭바레 다 디바디 추 돌디샤나 아니 길룩 다니녜비 레로세디 차디게레 아니 데యాం디니 귤라 가르세 거르바다 미비기 레로 지당 데불레 미비 레로 니유레스 딘주 가바니 용고레스나디니 ngô wesale yimba tang dimal luburba yimba te ngo mashi bale yung yore ani kasuba be tenju digi jeje zo di ngô wesale yimba tang dimal luburba yimba ti ped tang rigba dime ko ni dishi gyab yung yoba yindu ani ngô wesale yimba tang dimal luburba yimba ti ha goni teni gyula mikba tang tebula mikbi ki gilu dhani ni bilelo di pangtu gre se didi gyung go bare se ni tang etan da toto shuna di shugore.
When it comes to the purpose, the benefit of engaging with this treatise, Gyud Lama, I have taught you that the main purpose would be to abandon the five faults and to attain five qualities, right? And when it comes to these five faults, we can sort of summarize them all as laziness of self-deprecation, right? And this, when it comes to this laziness of self-deprecation, again, we divide it into two, right? The one that pertains to the fruit, not believing in the result, and another one is pertaining to the cause, kind of putting the cause down, not believing in the cause. I further mentioned that these two types of laziness come about from us not understanding, not knowing about our true nature, which is luminosity, and not knowing the aspect of this afflictive, difficult states of mind is nothing but the fleeting, temporary, right? And not the true nature of the mind. And so this luminosity and adventitiousness is really the main subject matter of this text that will be explained through different reasonings and examples. And so, therefore, we can understand that the purpose for studying, really engaging with this text, would be for us to come to understand the luminous nature of the mind and adventitious, fleeting aspect of the stains. And once we come to know about and trust in those, what happens is that we will remove these two types of laziness, the one that not believing in the result of Buddhahood, another one not believing in us achieving it. And so we can see that it all comes together, right, in this way. That's why I've been talking about this in the last few Dharma sessions, because that's really about the purpose and benefits of engaging with this treatise.
나서 teni ta dering ni tangbo di shugi 다 덴데기 대신 닝부 디 란신 심진 탐질라 여바당 심진 거디 워살임바디 하거나 니 연된다 페인스나미도 따디기 연된디 카리카리 유레스니 연된 남방아지 숭어레.
What I would love to then continue with is the qualities, because we talked a lot about the faults, right, that come about from not understanding Buddha nature, of not engaging with the text. But what about the benefits of studying and engaging with the text? In other words, what are the qualities? And again, we have 5 of those that come about from us realizing that all beings, myself included, possess Buddha nature. What kind of qualities come about from us understanding that the true nature of everyone's mind is that clear light luminosity? Right? So let's talk about those now, those qualities.
데니 다 페인 아버디 카레송레스나 다치당 가상기 견nga 디긴 독소다고 ngati 숭바리 당버디 카레스나 쪼와세디 다 가상한주 레로라와 레로긴 독소디 카레 준주 쪼와 쪼와지기레스 데니 니바디 카레스나 귀바스니 숭가리 귀바스나 랑라 귀바 랑신도 심진 신라양 귀바 다디 마뻬다 니죄든 도저로바 데니 니바디 숨바디 데니 셰랍 시바디 예셰 나바디 잠바침보스니 땡아버들라 데니 데셰닝구 ngoshebam 다 여비기 페남 연된 나방아 스니 진주터 그래 숨
The 5 qualities are really the opposite of the 5 faults. So if the first fault was this kind of laziness of self-deprecation, right, being discouraged, disheartened, and once that is reversed, the quality that arises is that of joy. Because, well, what's opposite of laziness is diligence. But diligence, really, in its essence, is this joy, enthusiasm, right? So the joy will be born in us. The second quality, once we reverse this kind of contempt for others, self, that arises when we don't believe in Buddha nature, in its place, what will be born in us is respect. Respect towards everyone as towards the Buddha. The third quality is that of analytical wisdom. The fourth quality is primordial wisdom. And the fifth quality is great love. So all of those 5 qualities, once we have understood Buddha nature, these 5 qualities will arise.
다 당고디 쪼와세드레 다디 카레스나 당기 슈바나시 산지지 고반세지 톱 시바레스니 이식게 바이나 데니 톱되기 로이게 덴데기 산지 고반세디 나랑기다 당아주 인지켈라 마소나 this is something what I really need sigurwa same thing ni incomparable value ji thungurwa di to yongda di top par nga kharche ko du sidi lam to ko gre sidi lam to bala to wa ki gurwa de la to wa slavari.
If we look at these 5 qualities in more detail, the first one, that of joy, the quality of joy will arise. Well, once we have gained the trust that Buddhahood is possible, what happens is that from the bottom of our hearts we'll have the desire to attain it. We will think that, well, That's all what I need, right? Once we see the value of Buddhahood, incomparable value of Buddhahood, really, then that enthusiasm of pursuing, of practicing the path will arise. That kind of joy to really attain that Buddhahood, right? That will spring forth in our being.
다디페 내가 주보래 베나 간주 가상 간주 딩산 지딩기 감라 섬나 땅바이네야 미망체디다 depression 차겨래 심심기 나자 세그와 간주 디바 땅보 들어봐 가르치니 심심 도고여레스나 땅보 딜라 미율 메바 미율 하마고 니 니바 딜라 직 ngoye nesu da mitumbe unrealistic miljisha de du matu yonde ani semshum to garwa ta tanda towa sedi ani chi susuki gari gogu yobate sebo hako ti khandis thop gogu yobate sebo hako ta ngara so ine susuki miyul dang lamka iska di sebo chasona ta dilanga zu ki pena ngazu mangche karichini depressed chagresena ji pena meaning of life di sebo hamago yongde cha yongdo ba ta de ni ge nangla de tata yore firang dosa kawa imbatang kandis doku go yobati sebo ha ko sabe chela an digi chi nganzu ki misela chi meaning dang energy dang ta meaning ji tegi do ta ji kala masona it makes your life meaningful mi yu yore mi yu dube ke lamka yore ni ka sebo yore dila karise yore sona towas ta da nge gyudan debu ni le deba chaswa de be ge chumbore do
Apologies for the sound. This first quality of joy is extremely important. As if we think about the state of mind of many people in the world these days, what they really struggle with is depression. And depression is, in other words, is this first fold that we looked at, right? The five folds. The first one, this feeling disheartened, discouraged, that's depression. And depression or this kind of discouragement comes from, first of all, not having clear objectives or goals in life. And second, kind of not knowing how to reach the goals, like having kind of unrealistic goals that cannot be reached and then feeling disheartened when they can't be reached, right? Now, this joy, this quality of joy comes when we understand what we really need in life. It becomes so clear, the goal, the objective becomes extremely clear, the path, the way to attain it also becomes clear, right? So then, well, why are we depressed, in other words, right? It's because we don't know what is the meaning of life. Or many people depressed because of that, not knowing what's the purpose, what is this all about. So now, when we have that joy, what happens is that we become really clear about where to go in our lives, what's the goal, and then how to go there, what's the path. So it gives our life meaning. It makes our life meaningful. So you see now that joy, this first quality that comes from engaging with this text and believing in Buddha nature, addresses these two folds of laziness pertaining to the fruit and to the cause, which is the path, right? I connected it now, right? Clearly that we will have that clarity in terms of what are the goals, and then we will also have that meaning like in life. And so we will know how to obtain that goal.
Chedang anzu ki soso ki mise ki miyu se di ngo ma she pam yana pe unrealistic chaye ki kimsen de kar resna. Anzu miyu dangbo soso la samlo ma dane soso ngo ma she ni. Soso ki nipa khaso yo ba tang soso kare imba di yakbo ha gon na tini gyud de la tini nge debu de ch tuk tuk re se choba che ba di realistic chagro wa. Anzu ina da realistic vision based on the realistic cause. Ta di zane samlo matang ba chine dangbu vision la samlo tangwa ina soso ki nipa khaso yo me samlo matang ba ina tini di unrealistic chagre ina ngarang zu sem shum tuk re. Di indu da dangbo nganzu tanda gyu deshe nyingbu nyamlin che di dangbo sangi le kyang nga la nyuba kharich tuks di samlo tang yore. Di ki jesu pang ni nge sangi ko pang duki yose di samlo te tang yungu yoba indu di shira ki chik realistic tawa tang kharich sawar nganzu ni chik gyumsen denpa so tawa chik chagi yoba indu ani sem ki ting ni chik susu ki nyuba la tsopa ni susu ki miyu di samlo tang yoba indu pe nyuba chumbo shibu chore. Di sem de la sem shuk tang confident tang towa di shuk chumbo shungu yore. De la sungbari towa zi.
Depression comes, as I said, from not having clear goals, objectives in life, and secondly, having unrealistic ones. And these two problems come from, first of all, not knowing who we are, not really knowing our nature, our abilities. If we would understand a little bit more about ourselves, our powers, our abilities, right, we will understand that we have that amazing cause. And because we have cause, that result can be achieved. So then we will gain this very much realistic vision, the vision of achieving the goal based on something valid, right, on reality of how things really are. Otherwise, when we're not sure about that, how things are in terms of our own abilities, our own nature, we don't have that vision. Not having that vision, realistic vision, which is based on realistic cause, what happens is that we get depressed, we get discouraged. If we would just really fully understand our abilities, right, understand that that state of Buddha, of awakening, is very much realistic goal for us. There are really valid reasons for that, right? Then what happens is that, well, we will become extremely confident and joyful in our pursuit of that goal. So it happens once we really estimate our real value, right? We need to estimate our potential, our value. Once we see it, we know that, wow, that achievement of that goal is very much realistic. That vision of achieving that goal is really solid, real. That will give us such an enormous amount of joy and confidence in ourselves. So this is the first quality.
Ta nipa di gupa se dire. Ta gupa se di kasang anzu semjin shen la mepa se dripa shungudwa. Ta kandar tak tang shen se ki yewa che tsabe che la tini tak se la jizin ji shu yongdu tini ta gyumsen mangbo je la tini kandar ingje shama di gomdogu ma re su. Tini rangshin semjin tamche ki gyu la deshe nyingbo di chechung sangin mebar kyabdeyo ba ije keba ina tak dewa dewa na shenyang dewa dewa je yinba la ngolin chetum na tini ingje keba di yang nga zu ina sympathy daw tine mai ma ngone dani gi ji khorangi topdang re samsam daw ji simjin shenla roba je di ngarang gi lenge in samsam daw ji tinde gi tine genuine shama gi ningji di keto gre discrimination me betong.
The second quality is the quality of respect, which is the opposite of the fault of having contempt for others, disdain towards others, that really comes from division, us dividing between self and others, distinguishing, right, discriminating between self and others. And when we discriminate between self and others, what happens is we automatically have this attitude of self-cherishing, like we are the most important, and then having contempt towards others and not being able to feel pure compassion towards others. If we would just understand that there is really no difference between the self and the others, in the way of just like I want to be genuinely happy and well, others want that genuine well-being too. And from that understanding, we'll feel not just a mere sympathy towards others, but we will understand that that's their birthright then to be happy. And therefore, it's my responsibility to provide towards that right, birthright of all beings. And so that kind of pure compassion that does not discriminate will arise.
Tene de kapsula kazang issue kechmo chik de nganzo ngak nyamden jebe kapsula ta dagnang se chik yani yang du sungrwa dagnang ma komna tene yong mare se da dagnang se dia deshe nyingbu simjin thamjela yobati samlotang to ba ni dagnang ko me de nganzo ina uzu gyabado mai ba woni dani da 그랬어요. 그래. 그러나 임발지 검구에 산비게 샘팅이 야고지 검도도 와. 디 마도 되니 다 지 당랑검 세야 되는지 나랑게 샘기 우주 겹대비 소도지 로 마데디 나랑 검고 주나 갈래갑도 와.
Here, there is another really important point that have already mentioned in the previous Dharma session. It comes especially for those who practice the Tantra. In the Tantric vehicle, pure perception is something that we cannot do without in the Tantric practices. And this pure perception towards all comes from realizing that Buddha nature permeates all beings. And so it's really from that realization that of Buddha nature being real intrinsic nature of all beings comes that really pure, we can say uncontrived pure perception, where we don't force ourselves to see something pure, because we recognize what it is, really, right? We're not making it up. We just acknowledge what it is for what it is. And therefore, that pure perception comes very naturally. Otherwise, if we don't recognize Buddha nature as just being, true nature for everyone, we might end up forcing, like, really kind of, persuading ourselves to have pure perception when we don't, and it will make our minds quite uptight. It will be really uncomfortable to really force oneself to feel one way.
Tene 다 숨바디 셰랍 숭바레 다 데kapsu 셰랍 세디 가장 안주 도톡바 세드와 당아란 줄라 셈라 따용디 루브르기 디마디마도 ngobotunzu thongthogi medi tini ta semse di nyokta chawo deja shedang timoki ranshin redo sambikin todo bigi nyembola tini sherab digi dima di semje ngo mayimba lupuri yimba hako songdi tini tela kare segori sini sherab segori dima di ta ngay dangi shubha ranshin lupuri seshto wa dalrung semje ngo la mepa 당 아주 자진 조진 값을 하더니 남카당 뛴라빼 망고샤네 숭그레 되니 산이 귤라마 코랑 값을 하야 세당 야당 아니 딘들라빼 샤니다 망고지 숭그레.
The third quality is the quality of wisdom, the kind of analytical wisdom. And it replaces the fault of perceiving the untrue. Kind of perceiving the untrue here refers to us not seeing our true nature, but rather seeing these problematic, afflictive states of mind as being our true nature. Right? That was the third fault of this perceiving the untrue, kind of like superimposing that nature, which is actually not the nature of our mind. And here, when we clear away that fault by realizing Buddha nature, what happens instead, we have a very clear insight, right? This wisdom could be understood as insight that, wow, these problematic, afflictive state, aspects of mind, really, not the nature, but aspects of mind, such as me having these desires, me being angry, me being jealous, etc., etc. This is something that can be removed. This is temporary. This is adventitious, right? As we've been talking about today. In the traditions of great perfection and the great seal, like Dzogchen and Mahamudra, there's a lot of descriptions of that through giving analogy of the clouds in the sky, right? Fleeting, temporary clouds in the sky. Here, this treatise of Gyud Lama gives other examples as well, such as the gold and the rust that can be removed from the precious stone, right? Because it's just this fleeting, not true nature. This is that wisdom, right? The quality of wisdom that will see that. That's the what we will achieve as well.
되니 다 시바디 가르스네 예시에서는 라바레. 다 지당 깝깝라 시랍당 예시세디 아 시랍세디 지당 안주 두몽라고 지래 예시세디 또저 딜레기안 되니 아 사바당 당 알아서 있는 가르스레 사바다고 지 망세 두스베지당 그래.
The next quality is the quality of primordial wisdom, or we can also translate it in English as wakefulness. Now we might wonder what's the difference with the previous one, right? The previous one, analytical wisdom, what's in Sanskrit is prajna, where this fourth quality is jnana, jnan, right? Wakefulness, primordial wisdom. So the quality of prajna or analytical wisdom, this kind of insight, is something that's more commonly used in the Buddha Dharma as a term, right? We could refer to different contexts, where this quality, the fourth quality of primordial wisdom or wakefulness, jnana, is more profound term. It's reserved in its usage for more specific occasions. It's kind of like superior or more profound one.
배낭아라서 다 남기 식비제 당도 된라다 마디바 얘기 말이네. 식비제 당도 ngala sherab yes nganju laba ina di ta lapcho ba su da ujira tebe sherab samira ini ngala yishe yes labna to zo ta madik bi su da uji sangge la yishe yore ngala sherab yore stite su da uji lab ko gre ta di kheba ta inji la gyur yong ta ta ji khebar go gye na me na aju beba la chila di ni bi ta andi le khebar de yore.
To give you a little bit more explanation how we, Tibetans distinguish between these two terms, right? In Tibetan, one is sherab, another one is yeshe. Again, prajna or jnana, and we can say here analytical wisdom or or this kind of, wakefulness. So in Tibetan, it's quite okay to make a statement that I have analytical wisdom. Well, it's the one kind of that arises from study, from reflection, from meditation, right? This kind of insight that comes from those three processes. It's okay to claim that I have it. But in Tibetan, to make a statement that I have wakefulness, that's really not a very comfortable claim. It's something that more kind of reserved for realized beings. Like, it's okay to say the Buddha has that primordial wisdom or wakefulness, but it's not okay to go around claiming that, I have it. Right? That's how we use in Tibetan. Khenpo said he's not sure that it comes across in English in that way. I don't really think it does, but perhaps, wakefulness is a bit of more profound word, right? And analytical wisdom is something that we could kind of commonly share.
다 대값을라 20세 때 간데세기였으나 되네. 샘게라신 웨살 임바당 대양 다단네 웨살 임바. 다 단단히 거랑 아주 또 소설지 제마 웨살 세디 제마지 톱 용기 많이 봐. 단단 가랑도 쌀이기 차지도 와. 통화당 퇴바당 리바당 용마주래. 다 대가 랑게 값을라 되니 웨살 세디 여바지. 다 이내 거의 피라 차다디 당 아주 촐투고요 말이. 여바지. 되니 강달다 최기 잉 랑신 룬룹도 여발라 여발시밤 이시게밤 니시게바들라 가르세그는 대값이 이시세그래.
Choki in hulun jubdu
최기
impa.
잉 랑신 웨사와 룬룹도 랑라 여발라 여발 니시게바들라 대값이 이시세그래.
And choki in di kapso. Kontonatets cheson dragia. Choki in di chiksum pempe.
최기 잉다 랑신 웨살과 대 룬룹도 여발라 여발 이체바.
Na yanker cheson. Nadi letets sabmora kacho.
되게라면 되게 돼.
Gonda danda kogyedu.
아주 샘기 연된 웨살세지 라비어와 웨살디 제마 톱 용규다보당 사도 니 용규다보지 마인바 다다네 랑 사릭데당 ngo그 출들라 룬룹도 여대발라 여바 이체바텔라 다 샘기 연된 여발라 여바 이체바스네 되게
Lasso. Na choki in malamdi. Lassa hakusan. So this fourth quality of wakefulness, primordial wisdom, it has something to do with us realizing that this luminous nature of the mind is present in us right now. So this luminous nature is not something to be achieved later on, but it is as it is right, present in all of us right now. Our minds are clear and aware and cognizant right now. We are hearing, we're seeing, we're experiencing, we're understanding, we're recognizing. This permeated by that clear light or luminosity right now. So this fourth quality of wakefulness has really, in other words, is our understanding, well, that being wise or having wakefulness with regards to understanding that all qualities are already inherently present in all of us. They are not something that has to be newly achieved, but rather they are built in as very inherent, intrinsic nature right now in all of us, right? So that realization is the fourth quality, that one that we call wakefulness.
단데니 ngabadirla jamba chimbo slabare desundita Dordina Ranshin Simjin Sanjin Ranshin Simjin Tamjila Yu Dewar Shebi Ningbu Yopatang Dini and Taji Ranshin Simjin like Kepar Mepatang Dini da dendeki Gongdu Shebi ki Gyumsin Tinzula Teni Kantar Rangla Ningchi Keba Nashin Jini Ranshin Simjin Tamjila Ningchi Chikbasu Ketu Batala Dini Jamba Chimbo Simjin Shin Tamji Rang Dewa Dindu 여바 나신지기 신심진 참절라 대화 된되고 로게도 받을 잠바 첨부 송거래.
And the fifth quality is that of great love. Well, when we realize that Buddha nature is a basic goodness, really, it's the part. It's not only our own nature, but it's the real nature, true nature of everyone, without exception. We will understand then that there is no difference between ourselves and others in this deep, deep, profound level. We cannot really distinguish between our own happiness, our own needs, and the needs and happiness of other beings for the reasons that were explained already. We will come to see that we are all one, and all what we want is this happiness. And so that great love, meaning that we will wish for everyone to be truly happy, just like we wish ourselves to be happy. So that great love will arise.
다 도르디나 고바디 슝겐낭라 데니 견가당 윤데가 숭어레 데니 대신령부디 ngo마셰나 견가 빵투고 말에 윤데가 깨투고 말에 대신령부디 ngo셰나 아니 견가 빵투그레 윤데가디 깨투그레스 양나 윤데가디 깨베 고네 견가디 빵고그레스 다디 덴데기 랑돌기 니디 야보 하고버디 가르레스나 드니 가수바베기 캄맘 규대신님부디 시빙 거바레스니 당아주 주준 잠바 공부랑기 캄기 리우템베 갑술라 든주 세부 숨샤요레.
In short, what we have seen in the last two Dharma sessions is that the purpose for engaging with this text is to abandon the five faults and to give rise to five qualities. It is when we do not recognize, when we don't acknowledge this Buddha nature, basic goodness of ourselves and others, it's then when we fail to get rid of five faults and to give rise to five qualities. So that's the purpose. By giving rise to these five qualities, by working on them, by recognizing Buddha nature, we end up abandoning, clearing away those faults, five faults, right? This is the, in other words, really the purpose here, we can see that it's very clearly connected with what is to be achieved and what is to be rejected, what is to be abandoned, what is to be attained. So that's how Maitreya had explained, the protector Maitreya had explained the purpose at the end of the fourth chapter of Element in this treatise.
드니 다 되게 내가 다워디한 드니 니다 이슈반 시도르디나 웨살 생긴 거고 웨살단 디마 루부르바세 디니부디 드니 마란수다 야고치니 하고야당 고메단 디에디 개춤버리 디하마고는 견디주 용거래 숨버리.
And a key point that I wanted to emphasize is that we all need to really understand, come to realize that the nature of our mind is luminosity, where the afflictive aspects of our mind are temporary, adventitious. And it is through realizing those 2 points that we come also to abandon the faults. Right? That's the purpose here as well. That's really important to keep in mind.
다 딘주 콜란 개바 사니 슝코랑 게 값을라 시라게 되니 다 디니 콜라 캬캬 레비용 그래.
These two topics of luminosity and ventitiousness will be further explained in great detail in the text itself, because that's really the main subject matter of the text. So we'll revisit it also over and over again.
라서 되니다 디젤랑 아주 다 된대기 거바디 알아주기다 견디 빵비 빵당당 윤딘디 톱이 톱당기 되니 다 거바디 제부딩 아주로 톱고 걸와 아니 톱당기다 림밤 람기 림바스나 민도 냠린 제베 제당데 간디스 제고 그래서 때 된대시 용거래 안디 사이네 응알다 미투니칼레 걸마슈
In the next Dharma sessions, in the following Saturdays, we will look at and how to practice the path, the stages of the path, so that we really come to attain those five qualities and abandon five faults, which is the whole sole purpose of engaging with this treatise.
janju simju rimbu je mage banam ki renje ke ba nyam para me ba gone gondo belabare sho